Hi there, I'm Kimberly Wilson and I am delighted to be here with you tonight. What I wanted to do is talk through some tips for the holidays. How can we have a little more tranquility this time of the year, because it can become pretty hectic. And so if you have a moment, I'd love to know who you are, where you are joining us. I know we've got Shizuka, hello from Tokyo. I'm curious who else we have with us tonight. I also want to say a big thank you to those of you who had just joined me. For those of you who had pre-ordered the daybook, we had a fun gathering at 4 o'clock today. So lots of live stuff going on today, and it's a really big treat to be here with you. And as you know, this is our very first Facebook Live event, and I hope to do more. So I'd love to know what you would like to hear more about, what would be most helpful for you. And as we kind of move into tonight, what I thought I would do is just share how can we have a little more tranquility. So I hope everyone who's stateside had a wonderful Thanksgiving yesterday. And we had a really nice day. It's funny, I started out with a little love note to a lot of my blog readers. Hopefully you all saw that on the blog at KimberlyWilson.com. And then I headed to the studio and we did 5 charity classes for So Others Might Eat. So it was just this wonderful start to the day. And then I came home, I read for a little bit. I started to study and Tim's like, don't study. I was like, okay, I'll read. So I read, which is really lovely, and we had a fire. And then we went out to eat at this lovely restaurant that has tons of plant-based items. So that was a big treat. And then we went to a movie, which was it was just like the perfect Thanksgiving, very chill, very relaxed, and very tranquil. And so, you know, earlier this week, I was like, what would be a fun thing to do? Hello, Morgan. Hello, Dana. Thank you guys for being here tonight. And what I thought would just be fun was like, okay, so we're moving into like the most hectic time of the year, right? For some people. Some people really, really enjoy this, whereas others really kind of struggle. You know, it can be stressful. It can be, I've got Belle skittering around. Excuse me. Come here, Belle. Oh. Say hello. Hi, Miss Belle. So, you know, it can be a really, hello, we've got Victoria from Scotland. Wow, thank you. But, you know, it can be just like a really tough time of the year. And for some people, actually quite lonely and quite jarring. Some of you may have experienced that being home. If you were visiting family, I know a lot of people were nervous about visiting family and talking politics. Or, you know, I always joke that there's like the Aunt Bessie who's like, now tell me again, why aren't you married? You know, or whatever it is. We all have those things that kind of push our buttons. And so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about too. How can we work with all these triggers that come up for us around the holidays? Hello, Kristen from Atlanta, and hello, Miss Cindy from San Antonio. Thank you guys for being here. And you know what I'm curious about? What are you most, hi Darka, what are you most excited about for the holidays? Will you just put it in the notes? Or maybe what are you most anxious about? Because I have about 15 to 20 tips that I'm going to share, but I'm curious, is there something that you're like, this is really what I'm concerned about, or this is what is the most exciting thing or the most challenging thing for me? All right, so hello, Julia Piscatelli. Yay from your West Virginia escape. So, you know, one of the things that comes to mind whenever I think holidays and I think of what is the most challenging or the most exciting. And really what comes to mind to me is this sense of connection, right? So connection with family, connection with friends, connection with colleagues. Denise, excited about spending time reading in front of the fire. Abso-freaking-lutely. Anxious about living up to expectations of what the holidays should be. I love that, Cindy, and I'm going to tap on that because I think it's so important. Hello, Karen from New York. And you know, yeah, the anxiety, that's one of the things that comes up a lot, is to the sense of perfection, right? We see all these beautiful images on Pinterest and Instagram, and we're like, my Thanksgiving table didn't look like that, or my holiday tree doesn't look like that, or whatever it is. And so how can we actually have a holiday that suits us and fits us and our kind of needs? So I wanted to share a quote to get us started that I thought would be a nice way to begin. And I'm going to be looking just to my right a little bit to read my notes. So please forgive me as I turn a little bit. But so the Anna Quinlan, she wrote this great book, which you probably know. I have it up here on my mantle. It's called The Short Guide to a Happy Life. So some of you may be familiar with this. And she's got this quote that says, the thing that is really hard and really amazing is giving up on being perfect and beginning the work of becoming yourself. So as you think about this holiday season, think about what is it that your self would look like, and how does your self want to show up? So one of the things at the beginning of yoga classes is I encourage people to think about what's an intention. What is it that they want to bring forth from the work that they're doing on the yoga mat? So for you, what's your intention for the holiday? And if you have a pen and paper handy, hopefully you do. I've got a little pink pen, so if you have anything handy that you can jot down and just maybe put for a moment, what is your intention this holiday season? And I'm seeing some, Denise, trying to slow down and savor. Beautiful, right? Not perfection. We're slowing down and savoring. And what might be helpful, Denise, too, and I'm sure a lot of people probably relate to this intention, would be what would slowing down and savoring actually look like? And Allison, first Christmas without my dad, who passed away earlier this year. I know, big losses in recent years. Any tips for handling those around the holidays? Ooh, that's a tough one, Allison. Let me think about that, because that is a really good one and a really important one. One thing that comes to mind off the top of my head for that is honoring that person. I like to do it on anniversaries. So when that person passed, or I know some people too do it on the holidays. They'll go and light a candle in a church or something along those lines, and really thinking about how to best honor that person. So it's a tough one, Allison, but holidays definitely bring up a big sense of loss whenever we are missing that person. So sending good thoughts, because I know how hard that is. And Gina, intention, consistency. Very nice. Well, and you know what comes to mind with consistency, and that is actually one of our tips, is sticking with your routine, right? So we all have some sort of a routine, right? We get up, we maybe have a cup of green tea, we walk our dogs, we write in our journal, or we rush out the door with wet hair, whatever it is. So whenever you think of consistency, it's like, how do you keep these routines going, even though I know there's going to be a lot more on your plates? All right, so number one that I want to encourage, and Stephanie, thanks for joining. You were just on our other gathering, enjoying all the parties without pumping my body with sugar and empty calories. Yes, I do have a piece on that too, because this is a time of year where mindless eating and mindless drinking definitely happen. And so I want to talk a little bit about that and how we can work with that. And if you are not familiar with mindful eating, there's great stuff out there on this. And there's even books on it. A wonderful book actually called Savor, which goes along with one of your intentions. And it's all about this process of slowing down and really tuning in and tasting our food. So slowly chewing and kind of enjoying, versus what may have happened yesterday, or often happens, with the holiday cookies at the office. It's like just like shoving it in, right? So how can we really kind of slow down and savor? So I'm hearing that is a theme for a lot of you for this holiday season. So number one, my very first thing, hello again, Jessica, is list everything on your mind. Okay, so this is from groceries, like, oh my gosh, I have to get this, or I have to get that. I have to make sure that I have this for this event, or to bake these goodies. So make a list of everything, right? So we've got groceries, we've got gifts. I always like to do a gift list. Tammy, I love the book, Meditate Your Weight. Very cool. Thank you. That's a good one. I have to check that out. I don't know that. So listing everything on your mind: groceries, gifts, cards. Those of you who do the cards, I used to do those for years, and I stopped doing them, but I still love receiving them. And decorations. So these were just like 4 kind of categories that came to mind to me that are kind of things that are always kind of, stirring around this time of the year. Like, I have to make sure I've got this. So next Sunday night, I'm going to be hosting an event at my home, the HTC 10, which I'm going to do a quick reading of the introduction at the end of this call, which I'm really excited about to share with you. And as I do that, I wanted to mention too that that's one of the things, right? So in preparation for that event, I went out, I got some macarons, and, it's like making sure I've got bubbly, so all these sorts of things, I've actually already stocked up on this stuff well in advance of the event so that I'm not stressed out the day of, like running around town trying to get it. So go ahead and make a list of everything, all right? Groceries, gifts, cards, decorations, etc. Whatever else comes to mind. And then what I want you to do is review this list. Okay, so we're going to do brain dump, get it all down on paper, and then I want you to review the list for your MITs. And MITs stand for most important tasks. All right, so these are the things that I got to do these. These are really important. Like, this is a deadline. I've got family coming to visit, whatever it is. And cross off the ones that really aren't musts, like homemade pies, even though those are lovely. If you could maybe pick one up and save yourself 4 hours, right? So what is it that would be most helpful for you to pull things together in a way that saves you a little bit of time and energy? Also, the importance of saying no when possible. All right, so listing everything on your mind and then reviewing for your MITs, your most important tasks, and crossing off those that would be lovely, but they're not a must. Like, if they don't happen, it's okay. Next, I really want to emphasize what's so important and what some of you brought up earlier, the importance of self-care. Okay, so as you think about savoring, one of you mentioned reading in front of a fireplace. So as you think about savoring and slowing down, think about these basics of self-care. And these are the things that often go by the wayside whenever we're just too busy, when we're rushing around. And the holidays have this theme of, right, hustle and bustle of the holidays. How can we instead really slow it down and take care of ourselves? And so the basics, I just wanted to mention, you all know these, and I know that you are going to practice them. Basic sleep. All right, earlier in a call earlier, I mentioned the importance of Arianna Huffington's book, just came out maybe like a year ago, and the importance of sleep. So sleep, absolutely critical. Because I know for me, if I get less than 7.5, 8 hours, I'm grumpy pants. And so if that's you, it's important to make sure you're getting your sleep, particularly this time of the year, because you're going to have more on your plate. All right, so also exercise, making sure that that stays part of your routine. It's really important to kind of keep the body moving. I think particularly this time of year, we are eating and drinking more than usual. So to keep ourselves going. And then, another basic is drinking water, tea, whatever it is, make sure you've got libations kind of constantly that you are consuming and keeping yourself hydrated. Trying to be a good example. And basic self-care. 2 other things that I want to mention, and these are really great for whenever we're traveling or whenever we're going to visit family or whenever we find ourselves struggling. So a lot of the clients I work with find holidays to be taxing. And so one of the things that I like to share is the importance of breath. Also, hand over heart, which I'll talk about these in a moment, and also the importance of having a safe space. Okay, so let me tell you what I mean by that. So breath, the great thing about breath, like when I travel, I have to really focus on my breath because I'm a nervous Nelly on the plane. And so breath, what I wanted to mention is the 3-part yogic breath. So inhaling deeply through the nose, you feel the belly, ribs, and chest. And then exhale, chest, ribs, and belly. And now why this is so important is because we've got our breath with us constantly, okay, until we're not in the world anymore. So breath is a wonderful tool. You don't have to roll out a yoga mat. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to run around the block. What you want to do is instead really notice your breath. And you can do this while you're on a conference call, while you're driving, and nobody has to know. But deep breathing helps to calm the nervous system, and that's what we want, particularly when you're in long lines. Those of you who dealt with any of the Black Friday stuff today, I mean, you know how intense this can get, so let the breath be your guide. Other thing is hand over heart. So some of you may notice you just intuitively do this, placing one hand over your heart center. And studies show that this actually helps to calm the autonomic nervous system. I will find myself as I'm talking to people, I'll just have my hand here and I just intuitively do it. And then a couple years ago, I read that it's actually really good for calming the nervous system. And I was like, maybe that's why I have done this for years. So you may notice yourself doing that, but you could be like hanging out, having a conversation with somebody and just have your hand here. Nobody knows that you are practicing calming yourself. All right. So hand over heart. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention with this is simple kind of basic things like aromatherapy. So there's lavender oil. So I always have lavender oil with me, and lavender oil is great. Like even, I don't know if you can see Belle here, but Belle, letting Miss Belle sniff it. Lavender oil is great for calming. And then also lemon. So lemon or any citrus like orange is great for uplifting and invigorating. So like say you're studying or say you need to be on. Tammy, love aromatherapy. Hi, Patrice. So this is lemon. So nice. And you may be like, what in the world do I do with that? Because I just tote it around. Now lavender oil I actually do tote around because this has a little roll on and I keep this in my purse. Bye, Miss Belle. She's leaving us. So what you can do is put this on like say a handkerchief or, you know, some sort of scarf, maybe something small, even a cotton ball, and have this like in your purse or in your pocket. And so these are things that can be really helpful to smell. The smell is so important for helping to calm the nervous system, but they're also just great, easy little tools. And you can get these essential oils at your local health store. One other thing, this is a rose quartz. So one other thing that I've encouraged clients to do too, and I like to do, is just have something to kind of like rub. Say you're going into a really intense family dinner, right? And you have something that has a pocket. You could have this in your pocket and you just have something small. It's like worry stone, I guess you could call it. I mean, some people just find it to be comforting, you know, and even this might be too big, so you could do a smaller one. Rose quartz is all about love. So you could find something that resonates that you could kind of tuck in your pocket and have with you or have in your purse. And I've also seen, I saw somebody just asked about aromatherapy necklace. I've actually seen ones that hold crystals, you know, where you can put in different sorts of crystals into them, of course, much smaller than this. But it's just kind of a neat thing if you like these and you like to just have something that would be comforting for you. One of the things that yes, if you were working on your master's thesis, yes, you need lemon. You need lots and lots of lemon. Good luck with that, Loretta. One other thing that I mentioned earlier is safe space. Okay, and so you may be like, what in the world does she mean by that? So sometimes whenever we are triggered, say we're at a holiday party and we're more of an introvert, or say we are struggling in some way in a situation in that moment. And Angelica, yes, absolutely. This will be, I won't send this link out to this event, but it will be up on the Facebook page so you can watch it anytime you'd like. Sorry, you can't see it. So one thing with the safe space that I wanted to mention is being able to take yourself out of a situation that is feeling upsetting in any way. So sometimes it happens over the holidays, triggered with family, or as I said, triggered in a holiday party, something where we just need to escape. And so I've talked about with clients, and I practice this even myself. It's like, okay, just excusing yourself for a moment, maybe going to the loo and just kind of hanging out there, working on your breath, hand over heart, you know, something that will help to calm. Getting out of the house, going for a walk. I've had people talk about like being in a Minnesota winter and being like, I'm out of here. I've got to walk around the block. I just have to. And so if that's you, knowing like whatever you need to do, even if it's just 2 to 3, 5 minutes, it can really help to regroup. Okay, so simple things like breath, hand over heart, and safe space can be really important to help regroup in the moment whenever you're dealing with something that is less than tranquil. All right, so next thing I wanted to do or to mention is stacking like with like tasks. Okay, so for a lot of people during the holidays, they are running a lot of errands. And so if that's you, thinking about, okay, how can I make sure I'm taking care of as much as possible at once versus going to this store and that store and this store? You know, so really that's where the list making that I mentioned at the very beginning, hello Marjorie, that's where the list making comes in to be so helpful, right? So you can look at your list and be like, okay, I take care of this on the west side of town, this I can take care of online, this I can take care of at the farmer's market, you know, whatever it is, so that it allows you to really stack like with like, meaning tasks that are alike with one another. All right, next is reflect on your year, right? So you're like, okay, how can I have more tranquility during the holidays? So may not be something you necessarily do now, but over the next few weeks, beginning to reflect on your year. What are some of your lessons learned? What are some of your takeaways? Were some highlights, some experiences that meant a lot to you, right? So that is what I mean by reflecting on your year. Another thing, which is not applicable with what we're doing right now, is unplug. All right, so you may have noticed, hopefully, over the past couple of days, emails have been a lot lighter. I do see, though, that a lot of people are on social media a lot during the holidays because it's like, you know, a bit of an escape if they've had tons of family time and they just need a quick escape. But also allowing yourself the opportunity to just be offline a bit. And so for you, that might be a few hours, that might be a few days, that might be... I've heard from some people who blog regularly that are like, I'm going to take a blogging break for the next month. Okay, so I hope that that is a helpful thing to keep in mind, even though it's hard. And I'm glad you're not doing it now because it's a treat to be with you here on the Facebook Live. But sometimes it can be really important. Actually, there's this article, and I'm going to put it up in my weekend review. I'm going to pull it up right now. It was from the New York Times, and it came out November 19th. Quit social media. Your career may depend on it. I thought that was interesting. And I think it's just, so that we stay mindful of not putting out certain things on social media that could affect us actually getting a job in the future. But, I do think it's important to give yourself that space to just unplug, unwind as much as possible. And again, if you're check email every 5 minutes, then maybe you just move into like every hour. It doesn't have to be massive unplugging if that sounds like really overwhelming for you. Next is simple pleasures. Hello, Julie. Hello, Robin. Thank you guys for being here. Simple pleasures. So one of you mentioned earlier, reading by the fire. I did that yesterday afternoon for a couple hours. I can't tell you. It was like so amazing. And I hope to do that a lot more this weekend. So it's really, really important that you take that time for your simple pleasures. So if you have a moment, maybe write a few. What are a few of your simple pleasures that you want to make sure you make time for this holiday season? Maybe it's going out in the woods to cut your tree. Maybe it is... Sorry, I'm going to grab more tea. Maybe it is, baking cookies. Maybe it is sitting fireside with your family and singing carols. I mean, there's so many different things, right, that you can do. What I had under my examples were reading, fire, hi, Tammy from Michigan, and hot cocoa with like really yummy vegan marshmallows. So, whatever it is that is a simple pleasure for you that will bring you joy, because that's what we want a lot of during the holidays versus, oh my gosh, I have to do this and it has to look like that and I have to channel my inner Martha Stewart. Whatever it is, it's like, see, like what brings you joy and how can you make sure that it's infused into ideally every week. Next piece. Helping others. Now, if you've ever done anything over the holidays where you helped at a soup kitchen or you did, one year I went to an assisted living center and we handed out meals, Thanksgiving meals. And, of course, we do the charity classes at the studio. So, anything that feels like you're giving back, it is like the most amazing thing to do on the holidays. And it may not be on the exact day, maybe you do it during the month of December. But thinking about where can you volunteer or in some way give back? And maybe it's as simple as your next door neighbor who is a senior, helping them with groceries, right? So it doesn't have to be some huge undertaking that you take on, but can it be something that brings you a sense of giving back and being part of something? Hi, Ray and Lynn. Oh, and Robin. Oh, yes. Thank you. I'm glad you like the Tranquility tea. It's so yummy. Yes. And so helping others. The other thing, and I was thinking about this as I was pulling this together, is end of the year. I love doing donations and I typically do it. I don't know why, but I do it like New Year's Eve. It's like my fun New Year's Eve thing as I watch Anderson Cooper and Kathy Griffith. And so, donations. So thinking about your end of year giving, that's a wonderful thing to keep the holidays tranquil as you think about what can I give back? And even if it's just $5 to a charity that means a lot to you, making that a priority makes a huge difference. Now, if you are going to be traveling, one thing I wanted to recommend, as much as possible, staying as close to home as you can. If you are going to be traveling, then to travel as lightly as possible. even, if you're traveling with gifts or things like that, to make sure that they're things that are easily going to get through security. So traveling lightly, I've got a few checklists on my blog and actually on Tranquility, my clothingline.com. There's some packing lists too. But thinking about, okay, how can I travel as lightly as possible so I'm not lugging all this stuff around, and particularly maybe coming back with new things from your family, and you want to have space for those. So almost as if you were traveling abroad and going to a fun vacation, you want to travel lightly, and then so that you have space to bring things back with you. Ideally, lots and lots of experiences. Next, that's really, really important. Tammy, I like making little care packages for the homeless and keeping them in my car, ready to hand out wipes, snacks, bottled water, socks, etc. I love that. What a great idea. And so simple, right? You buy these, if you can buy these different things in bulk, and then you make these care packages. So thoughtful. That's amazing, Tammy. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. Getting outside. So you may think oh my gosh, it's so cold. But, as I mentioned, even in the Minnesota winter, sometimes you just need to get outside. You need a brisk walk, right? So making sure you get outside, you still have that fresh air time. It's so, so important. And particularly, I know some of you already have snowfall. I'm so jealous. And so if that's you, it's how can you get out and actually enjoy it, rather than it being oh, it's such a bummer, it's oh, it's going to slow down traffic or what have you. It's how can we really enjoy what's going on around us? Nature's kind of amazing, artistry. Mindful eating and drinking. Okay, so some of you mentioned this earlier. Robin, I ship gifts ahead of time. That's very smart, actually. So mindful eating and drinking. Okay, this is a tough one. So I love sugar, and I know some of you also love sugar, and so the holidays are filled with sugar. And so keeping in mind, it's okay, what would it look like to actually have one cookie versus 10? What was it I was eating a lot of recently, and I was oh, if I just savored one, it would really be amazing. I can't remember what it was. I just remember thinking, I should slow it down, and I think I would be a lot more satiated. So it's this really tasting something, and, the idea too is chewing it 20 times until there's nothing left of it. And I don't know if you're anything like me, when there's something really exciting, last night there were these little petite pecan pies. I put a photo of it on Instagram that we got at the at Equinox, where we went for dinner. Oh my gosh, it was so amazing. So it's rather than shoveling it in, really chewing and savoring. So that's one of the things that's really important with mindful eating. Slowing down, and then we appreciate it a little bit more. And also making sure that it is something that we want to ingest, right? That feels we're not going to be too guilty afterwards. And then mindful drinking, if you enjoy alcohol, it's okay, how can I mindfully not overdrink? Again, so it's this idea of really slowing down and savoring, which I love, which was one of your intentions for this holiday season. And so it goes the same thing with what we're ingesting, because we are doing that 3+ times a day, right? So that's a really important time to just really take it down a notch and just notice, how do I feel whenever I eat this? How do I feel when I eat that? And sometimes it's worth it. Sometimes that extra pecan pie slice of pecan pie is so worth it. Sometimes it's just not. So tapping into that and noticing for yourself what resonates. So I think mindful eating, mindful drinking, and really kind of, if it's helpful, tracking that and being had 2 glasses of wine last night. I noticed I wasn't as productive the next day. I was sleepy. I was grumpy. So noticing that, okay, the next party, I'm just going to have 1 glass. Whatever it is that works best for your system. Next, I want to mention, if you are hosting, again, to not feel oh my gosh, I have to be Martha Stewart, to think, I like this idea. Whenever I host, I like to do tapas, that's what I call them, hors d'oeuvres or appetizers, versus a sit-down dinner. So how can you make things as simple and easy for yourself as possible? Okay, so finger food versus sit-down. Decorating. So as you can see behind me, I've got up my silver tinsel. I debated severely between silver or gold. So I've got silver tinsel, and then I also have these cute little, I don't think you can see them, but I got little silver glitter initials for everyone in our family, me, Tim, and then the 3 pets. So that is kind of my decor for now. And then we're going to get some rosemary bushes and probably some evergreen. very simple. So as you think about decorating, I know so many people love the decorating aspect. Think maybe monochrome. Think maybe as simple as possible, but yet easy. So it's not something that's going to take tons and tons of effort or time, unless that's something that you really enjoy. What I want it to not feel like is I have to do this. It's like, I want to do this. How can you have more of I want to do this holiday season? Hi, Megan. And Tammy, thank you. Thank you. Actually, it always looks like this, except for I have the silver tinsel. And you know what? I may not be taking it down. I kind of like it. So next, just a few more things is gift DIY products and consumables. So what I mean by that is, rather than another scarf, even though scarves are great, but your Aunt Nelda may not need another scarf, think of consumables. So things like coffee, tea, jam, stuff along those lines that people will actually use rather than knickknacks, right? And then also DIY, I wanted to mention various ideas on things that could easily be whipped up, and there are lots of resources out there online on how to do these. Bath salts. Lavender body oil. That's what I think I'm going to be doing for the holiday season, which is just like lavender essential oil mixed with maybe some sweet almond oil and a few other oils, so it's like, and then some lavender buds in it. Jam is so much fun to make, and it's so tasty. I love it whenever people give me jam. Sugar scrub. Dried potpourri, simmering potpourri. Somebody gave me this lovely thing in a mason jar last year, and it was potpourri, but it was like liquid that you just simmer on the stove, and it had like cinnamon sticks and cloves, and it was like the sweetest, kind of easiest, coolest gift, and I used it for quite a few days. Homemade granola, and that's always cute again to do in a mason jar. Soap. Embroidered handkerchiefs, and candles. A lot of these things are things that I've made, so I could speak to the fact that they're not super complicated. So that might be something fun. Experiential gifts, absolutely, my Tay. That's so much fun. Like an experiential gift is like, we're gonna go to, I got us tickets to go see X, or I got us tickets to go ice skating, something along those lines. So important. Think experience, consumables, and DIY. Thank you, my Tay. So good. Looted, yes. A big one for me this holiday season was having simple decorations. Oh, good. Yeah, because, sometimes it's like we feel like, we bring up these huge bins of stuff, and it's like, really? Who has time for that? You may, and it may be really important to you, but sometimes it's just like a few twinkle lights, which, again, I have up year round, and silver tinsel, and maybe some rosemary bushes, whatever feels like isn't a huge undertaking for you. And again, that you really want to do. Next one, which I mentioned earlier, sticking with routine so that you have that sense of consistency that one of you, Gina, that you mentioned that you want to have throughout the holiday season. To stay connected to the meaning of the holidays. What is the meaning? Why are we even doing all of this? Like, what is it about the holidays that used to bring you joy as a child? Maybe think about that for a second. Maybe write something down. For me, it was like we opened gifts on Christmas Eve from the family, and then Santa's gifts on Christmas Day, and we didn't have to wait for the rest of the family to be up. So I could get up at like 5 a.m. because that's when one wakes up, when they know that Santa has delivered something, and then open my stocking while everyone else slept. So that was this great sense of joy and wonder and excitement, and I remember that vividly. So thinking about it for you, what is it about the holidays that you remember that was just like so exciting? I also remember decorating the tree. We always did that on Thanksgiving night, and then we always took it down Christmas night. So for you, what are some traditions that you liked? What are some traditions that you'd like to let go of, that they no longer serve you? So I have here also abandoning old customs that don't resonate. Stuff that you're like, it doesn't really work for my lifestyle anymore, or I never really liked that. So why do it? So these are my tips for keeping the holidays as tranquil as possible. And I'll run through them briefly again real quick. And I'm just going to move this for a moment because I have the chapter I wanted to read to you under here. So listing everything on your mind. All right. So groceries, gifts, cards, and decorations. Reviewing for your most important tasks. What are those things that you've got to do, you can't wait to do, you're so excited about? And then cross out the ones that you're not excited about. I'd really like to go visit so-and-so, but I just can't make that holiday party this year. It just isn't going to fit into my schedule. I can't do it all. I didn't grow up celebrating Christmas, so as I get older, every tradition is a new adventure for me. Yeah, very cool. And it's, you know, the neat thing about this is no matter how you grew up celebrating, is to think about what are some new traditions I want to bring in? How can I become actually even more cultured and learn about how other people celebrate? You know, it's I was brought up in a Christian church, and we would have like a candlelight service, maybe 6 or 7. And now I date someone who's Catholic, and they did like Mass at midnight. I'm like, what in the world? That's amazing. Or 10 o'clock at night. You know, so there's all these different ways in which people celebrate that it's kind of fun to try out different things and then just to see what resonates with you. And again, shedding what doesn't anymore. Importance of self-care. So I mentioned that: sleep, water, exercise. Noticing your breath, your 3-part yogic breath that I went through. And if you're like, I don't remember it or I wasn't on here, just know that I've got tons of stuff on my YouTube channel on how to breathe, how to work with the spine, things about that. And water intake. All these things are so important. Okay, so breath, hand over the heart. So I don't know if it matters which side, right? I mean, or which hand, but I just tend to put my right hand over my heart center and leave it there. It's quite calming, relaxing. Stacking like with like tasks. So as you go through that list, noticing what are the different things that are easy to do to lump together. Reflecting on your year. Again, this is a really fun piece. And also I want to add to reflecting on your year, not just reflecting, but also designing 2017. What do you want to bring forth? What's your intention? What are your dreams? Another thing that I didn't mention that I think is really important is watching for triggers. So what I mean by that is it could be a comment that someone makes that you know it just always digs, even though they may not mean it that way. That's how it's always interpreted when they say something to you. Having unrealistic expectations, perfectionism, overdoing. So just notice these triggers whenever these things come up, and then see what you can do to have some of these self-soothing behaviors, such as the finding the safe space, right? The essential oils, the hand over heart, the 3-part breath, the exercise, the sleep, unplugging. So a little bit of disconnection, simple pleasures, helping others, traveling lightly as possible. So whenever I talk to you about traveling lightly, it's like, how can we do maybe a capsule wardrobe, which is somewhat monochrome? It at least allows things to mix and match, right? So that we don't have to travel with a lot of stuff. Like I even just packed for the weekend. We'll be leaving shortly. And it was like, okay, I needed 2 pairs of leggings and 2 tops, which are basically the same thing. I tend to wear the same thing over and over again. But, you know, it just makes it easy. Getting outside, mindful eating and drinking. If you are hosting, which is so much fun, my favorite part is like lighting the candles and decorating. But, you know, people do like to eat if they've been invited to your house. So finger food versus sit down. Going monochrome with decorating, less is more. Gift and DIY/consumables and experiences, as my team mentioned. So I love that. I think that's so important. And it's so much more fun. Even though, like, yeah, a new scarf might be lovely, but it may not be needed. You know, sometimes we just buy things because we feel like we should. What would it be like to actually gift something that is useful? And I gave some ideas for different DIY projects to make. Sticking with routine, tapping into the meaning of the holidays, abandoning old customs that don't resonate. So those are my tips for the holidays. And in closing, what I wanted to do is share with you the Hip Tranquil Chick 10, which is the new chapter for Hip Tranquil Chick, which is a book that was published 10 years ago. That's a hot pink book. And it is the 10-year anniversary of it on December 4th, which is actually next Sunday night. And we're going to have a live event here. Super fun. We're going to have a live audience, and then we'll have people such as yourselves tuning in. And with it, you get the live event, you get this new chapter, which is 10,000 words, which is a quarter the size of Hip Tranquil Chick. So it's pretty juicy. I'm just going to read the intro though, so it's not very long. And then you also get a guidebook that goes with it. So how to best participate in the online events, and what are some ways to experience a little bit more tranquility as you think of and reflect on the past decade and move into the new one. All right, so Hip Tranquil 10 introduction. Oh, excuse me. Hello, Miss Bell. She keeps trying to get up and then she runs away whenever you try to lift her up. Sorry. Hip Tranquil Chick 10 introduction. So again, this is the draft. So this is not final. The final version, for those of you who have signed up, thank you. And it will go out midweek next week. So you'll get the chapter, which is going to be really pretty with photos and all sorts of things. Hi, Miss Bell. And that'll be coming your way next week. The past 10 years have been a whirlwind. The biggest economic crash since the Great Depression. iPhones change how we communicate. iPods become obsolete. The U.S. elects its first black presidents, and a major party nominates a female presidential candidate. Facebook, Uber, and Instagram enter the lexicon and become verbs. Prince, Betty Friedan, and Mother Teresa die. Marriage equality is recognized. Yoga, mindfulness, and podcasts boom. What a decade. On the micro scale, I went under the knife twice to repair injuries. Pumps replaced my yoga pants when I took a job downtown as a psychotherapist. I lost my beloved 99-year-old grandma to, well, being 99. My firstborn pug and black cat crossed the Rainbow Bridge due to cancer. I saw Garth Brooks in concert 13 times. My partner Tim and I adopted 2 rescue dogs, Mookie and Bellstar. She's the one who's just interrupting. My apologies. From Oklahoma. And I traveled to Paris 6 times. Throughout the ebbs and flows, I've come to know that one thing is certain. Everything changes. When Hip Tranquil Chick was released in 2006, I was 33 years old, a self-employed yoga studio owner, in love with a nonprofit attorney, and a proud parent to pets. I dreamed of taking our newly formed nonprofit focused on tranquility for teen girls global. I worked around the clock managing a growing team and overseeing new projects and couldn't imagine a day that wasn't booked from start to finish. I believed anything was possible. Today, I sit in a corner nook at a downtown Starbucks across from where I see therapy clients, sipping green tea with a pen in hand and a different outlook. Hip Tranquil Chick was my coming out as an author, lover of pink and leopard prints, and proponent of kitten heels. Now I prefer Swedish clogs. My vision was to spread the message that yoga is much more than a practice of stretchy poses on a sticky mat. But what I didn't know was that my life would become much more than yoga. Now I spend my days working with clients seeking deeper self-understanding, go to bed at 10 o'clock, and dream of living on a farmette surrounded by pigs. With the anniversary of the book approaching, I created a survey asking readers what would make a helpful follow-up to Hip Tranquil Chick. They unanimously, that's a big word, asked for what lessons I'd learned since penning the book. Readers wanted to know more about aging in style, dealing with change and loss, practicing minimalism, handling the influx of technology, finding balance, and incorporating mindfulness. I spent weeks listing lessons and reflecting on the stories that went along with what I'd learned, such as signing a $2 million lease, feeding street dogs in India, and taking a break from teaching a weekly yoga class. What I found is that many of the things I've learned are still unfolding and reveal themselves daily. Acceptance, mindfulness, ease. So although some are lessons learned, most are more like lessons learning. After much contemplation, I narrowed down to 3 key lessons. Number 1, simplify. Number 2, bigger isn't always better. And number 3, everything in moderation. In the pages that follow, I'll share these lesson stories. I'll also share 2 tips, one that has permeated my life and another that is a playful philosophy on how I strive to live my life. One final takeaway that has turned into my life's mission is don't forget the animals. More on that one too. So that is my draft introduction. For HTC 10, that's the name of the chapter that is to follow up Hip Tranquil Chick that released in 2006. And if you all are free next Sunday night, December 4th, I would love to have you join us. It should be a really fun event. And the people who are going to be here live, some of them were actually at the book launch in 2006. 2 of them, I think, were helping sell the books. So we also have somebody flying in from the West Coast, somebody flying in from Colorado, somebody coming in from Philly, this is Bellstar who keeps harassing me. And so it should be a really, really sweet event, and I would love to have you all there. If you have any questions about it, don't hesitate to ask. You can find me, Kimberly, at KimberlyWilson.com, and of course on the Facebook page. And I hope you all have a wonderful holiday season. I'll kind of pull this together and do a blog post on what I've just shared with, some of the tips, but I just want to say a big thank you for taking time out of your holiday weekend to tune in, especially from Japan and France and Scotland. So grateful. And I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your holiday weekend and a really, really tranquil transition out of 2016. So thank you, and namaste.